Hello, everybody. Happy iOS Tuesday. I'm so excited to be here tonight with you. I'm so excited to write here tonight with you. And today, we're going to chat about iOS developer interview questions. So, as people are joining in, welcome to my live stream. My name is Eugene. If you're new to my live stream, if you're new to my live stream, I am an iOS developer and I do iOS Tuesdays every Tuesday where I talk about iOS stuff. And it's kind of my way to, reconnect with the community. Hello, Justin. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I do have new lighting in my office, so I decided to be finally a professional YouTuber and organize my office and decorate my office and have nice lighting. So um, tonight we're going to talk about interview questions and answers for iOS developers. And before we get started, a little bit of a housekeeping. My live stream is extremely informal, so feel free to ask me a question. Feel free to post your question or your thought in the chat. I'm here for you. I'm here to talk and chill with you, not just to talk at you. When you are interacting in the chat, please be respectful to one another and and your host. So, and tonight we're gonna talk about iOS interview questions. So, iOS development is a subspecialty of software development, and when it comes to an interview process for software developers, uh, there there are mainly two forms of interview questions, especially for iOS. There is algorithms and data structures kind of style of interview, and domain specific knowledge interview questions. So tonight we're going to talk about domain specific knowledge, iOS specific questions that people might ask you as you interview for interview roles. Look, when I was preparing my slides, I realized that I couldn't cover all of them, but I covered some of them, and we're gonna cover a little bit of SwiftUI because I think it's gonna be our new reality when people are gonna ask us about SwiftUI and during interview questions. Or like at this point, I think we have to get ready. We have to get prepared for that kind of question. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first question for iOS technical interviews. Tell me about yourself. And some people get this question wrong. So when during the interview and during the technical interview, an interviewer asks you about, tell me about yourself. And it's not really about yourself, it's about your professional work experience. And the best answer for this question is coming from your homework. So before the interview, you should Google the company, you should look at the company profile, what they're doing. You definitely should download their mobile app if the mobile app is available, and your answer should enhance what that company is doing. Because as an iOS developer, you probably work on some of the functionality that they are working with. You probably cover some of the functionalities or some of the frameworks that they're listed in their job description. So when you are talking about yourself and your recent experience, make sure that not just your resume highlights those qualities and those experiences and those expertise, but also and also your introduction when you just starting out. Like, hi friend, I'm barely awake, but I made it. Hey, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that you're ready with us. This is my friend. He's not feeling really well, but we're happy that you're here with us. So, make sure that your tell me about yourself, your introduction, emphasize what they're looking for. So the next question is UI view controller lifecycle events. It's a classic question, and not a lot of people answer that question correctly. So let's talk about it. So let's for a minute think about what is happening with like when your view controller becomes to life. What is the cycle of the view controller? So before anything happen, like your view controller will appear, meaning it will appear, view will appear. So before appearing, view will appear, will be called. And as view has appeared on the device, on the screen, the next call will be performed. View did appear. So your view appeared, and the next event is disappearing. So the next call will be view will disappear, and as view disappeared, which when disappear is also event, then it will call view disappear. So it's really important to understand this life cycle of your view or view controller. So it's basically rotates between appearing and disappearing, and different calls will be performed. But it's not just those four calls. There is load view if needed, a view that load, view will appear, view will layouts of views, view the layouts of views, view the appear, view will disappear, view did disappear. So those are the list of the events. I would I would not just stop there. I would definitely explain the cycle of the view controller, what the view controller is like, what cycle the view controller is going through. But also, I would prepare a couple of examples for different view controller events. For example, what is the difference between view did load and view will appear? So what kind of code you would put in view will appear, or in view did load, or view or load view, or will layouts of views? It would be a really good example. It would be really good. It would be a really good answer to those questions. Sometimes what I'm seeing when I'm interviewing people just go through the list of the events, and they I really would like I really don't have to ask them to differentiate some of the events. So sometimes people provide a little bit more example, like for you don't have to provide examples for every call, every view control lifecycle event, but you have to provide at least two examples. For example, view will appear, or view did appear, or view will load. So one of them has to be provided by the example. Delegates and protocols. Delegation in iOS is one of the design patterns that that is heavily used in iOS development. So let's look at this picture, and this picture was provided by makeapppie.com. We highly appreciate your work, and we're going to use this example. It's not my image. I downloaded it from that website. So basically, when we talk about, let's start with a protocol. What is a protocol in Swift? A protocol is a list of the requirements. So whenever your class or structure conforming to the protocol, it has to implement those requirements. So what is a delegate? A delegate, basically, a delegate, a delegate will tell one object what to do and what to perform. For example, UI view controller has a delegate, and it will command class 2 will command to class 1 to implement certain requirements, to implement certain functionality. So in here, we see delegate my method. And if you see here, we don't really see exact implementation, because the commander or the delegator doesn't really care how delegatee or class 1 will implement that. So class 1, when it conforms to the delegate, it has to implement delegate methods to perform those delegate methods on itself. So here we have an example with 2 view controllers. And if you know iOS development, delegation and protocols is not just for view controllers. It is also for actually any class or struct can implement delegate and protocol patterns. So it doesn't have to be view controller. It can be your view model. Your view model can things like that. So design patterns in iOS development. Design patterns in iOS development is another pretty interesting topic, and we can talk. Actually, I can make the whole live stream about design patterns in iOS development. So, but there are four major design patterns: MVC, model view controller; MVVM, model view model; MVP, model view presenter; and Viper. And I don't know what Viper stands for, to be honest. I think it is view interrupter presenter. I'm not gonna butcher it. If you know what Viper stands for, please let me know in the comments below, because I totally forgot. And if you're still riding with me, please do the YouTube things, like and subscribe to my channel, share this video on YouTube, or share this video on platform that you're watching it on. I would highly appreciate it. And you never know who's going to watch that video. Maybe some of your friends or your connections are looking for a career change, and that would be a nice introduction for them. So MVC, MVVM, MVP, and Viper. And they normally ask you to provide one of the architecture or one of the design patterns that you like, that you prefer. So you can pick one of them. MVC is a native Apple architecture. MVVM, not so much. MVP is very similar to MVP is very similar to MVC. So as an example, you can say that you prefer to you prefer MVC because it is native Apple architecture, and you can actually implement it nicely if you separate concerns, and if you separate the view and controller logic into separate classes, into separate places, you can actually implement true MVC in your mobile app. If you pick MVVM, for example, one of the reasons I like MVVM, it is really compatible with reactive programming, and I can actually separate my business logic really well into view model. So my view doesn't have to know about the business logic. My view just has to do the view things, do the UI things. So, and MVP, and is the same reason why I like MVP, separation of concerns, because I can like the view controller doesn't really know the and the view controller doesn't really know what logic is being handled. So like presenter dictates view controller how to present. So you can pick one of them and just roll with it. And it's okay to pick MVC, but as it's okay to pick any of them, to be honest with you. But as long as you have your reason and definitive answer, that's all that matters. Notifications and observers. So one thing I forgot to mention when it comes to protocols and delegates is one-to-one communication. One-to-one communication. One class tells the other class what to do. With notifications and observers, it is one-to-many. And we have a beautiful example here. Let's say we have a notification center that will listen to the network. And if something goes wrong on the network, it will notify the app delegate. It will notify the data viewer, and it will notify Logotron. So those three objects at the same time, that network is going down. So notifications and observers, and the main difference is that delegates and protocols is one-to-one, and notifications and observers is one-to-many. Next question. In next question, we're going to cover SwiftUI a little bit, because I think it's about time. I think it's about time that we ask people about SwiftUI on the job interview, because SwiftUI has been here for a while, especially if we want to bring people with knowledge with SwiftUI. So here it is. SwiftUI view lifecycle. So I have two diagrams to kind of talk through. So when we talk about SwiftUI, we have so-called, and I kind of go with those terms because they kind of make sense, a layout phase and commit phase. So we have events like appearing and updating. So appearing when the view like initialize and subscribe to the state, form the body. Commit phase, SwiftUI update view graph and renders the UI, and it will trigger on appear. Updating, so let's say new data, new information, new, like the state of view has changed, external event happened. So then diffing is happening, and then view, like those changes are communicated to the body, and then SwiftUI updates view graph and renders the view. So, and Chris Ching, he's an excellent iOS developer. He posted this picture in his tweet. So huge shout out to him. So the same the same cycle. So we have external data that communicates to the view and from the view. So the data communicates to the view code, then it updates the UI, then it, some sort of event, code changes happen, and data is changing, and it basically goes in cycles with the view. And one of the important question, one of the important facts about SwiftUI View is that when we apply View modifier, we're creating essentially, we're rendering new view in your SwiftUI. So that's also something to keep in mind. So, but this is SwiftUI View. If you want to learn more and understand more, past WWDC, there was a talk, Demystify SwiftUI, and I highly recommend to everyone who is interested in working with SwiftUI to go ahead and look at that presentation. So the next question, what is the difference between accessibility identifier and accessibility label? Can I be honest with you for a second? iOS developers know this question, the answer to this question. So accessibility identifier. Accessibility identifier is not a user-facing feature. Accessibility identifier can be used for your testing purposes in your UI test, in your unit. It is, or user will never know what it is. But accessibility label, it's just like UI label. UI label, it's something that you can see, and accessibility label, it's something that you can hear. So if you turn on voiceover, your user will be able to hear accessibility label. Explain the difference, different types of iOS application states. So it's iOS application states. So, and we have 5 states here. So the first state is not running. The first state is not running. The not running state is when the app has not been launched yet, or was running but was terminated by the system. And it's the first state, not running state. The second state, inactive state, is when the app is running in the foreground, but currently is not receiving any events. An app stays in this state briefly as a transaction between different states. The only time it stays inactive is when user locks the screen or system prompts the user to respond to some sort of event, like, for example, a phone call or iMessage. Or if you just running your app, you open your app, you don't do anything with the app, your app is just on the foreground, it's inactive state. Active state is when the app is running and receiving the events for this app. So it's when the user gets like touching the screen, like inputs data, like gets the data, scrolls, swipes, interacts with your app actively. This is active state. Background state. Background state is pretty self-explanatory, is when the app is in the background and executing code. Most apps enter the state briefly on their way of being suspended. However, an app that requires extra execution time can remain in this state for some time. And also, an app being launched directly into the background enters the state instead of inactive state. So sometimes your app can launch into background state. Certain apps they don't have to be on the foreground. Certain apps can run on the background. And suspended state, a suspended app remains in memory, but does not execute any code. When low memory condition occurs, when your system is overloaded with memory and needs to free app memory to utilize other apps, your app will be essentially killed. So let's walk through different application states again. Not running, so your app hasn't been launched. Inactive state is when your app has been launched, but your user doesn't do anything with the app. Active state is when your user actively uses the app, does the things, and utilizes the app. And background state is when your app enters the background, and suspended state is when your app remains in memory but does not execute any state. And normally, from the suspended state, your app will be released from memory, otherwise killed, and user has to relaunch it again. Those are the states of your applications or application. What is the difference between UI test and unit test? So the unit test tests the logic at the class level. So you write the logic in your class, and then your unit test, you test that logic at the class level. UI test, on the other hand, tests the flow. It's a black box testing as a user, and it's a testing from user perspective. So, and normally it goes between the screens and to-end logic. GCD, Grand Central Dispatch. I haven't been asked a lot this question, but it's good to know. So, and we're gonna dive a little bit into GCD here. What is Grand Central Dispatch? Grand Central Dispatch is used in iOS to introduce concurrency. And a little bit on concurrency. It's kind of like old way to do concurrency. Right now we have async await and anchors and all that good stuff, and we're gonna talk about it in the future live stream. But not a lot of apps are ready for it. But so if we talk about concurrency, Grand Central Dispatch introduces concurrency and parallelism in iOS applications, so that multiple heavy tasks are performed on the background and resulting in smooth experience of the application usage, as the main thread is unaffected by heavy background tasks. It was introduced in iOS 4, and to avoid like the serial execution of the task. Let's dive a little bit deeper into queues. So there are different types of queues on GCD. So one of there's a main queue, and the main queue launches the iOS application and creates serial queue and binds it to the queue, to the application in the main thread. So the main queue runs on the main thread and utilizes mostly the UI code. So dispatch queue main async. We all know that code. We all utilize that code whenever we need to execute and or update our UI. We call the dispatch queue main, and it will execute on the main thread. But also there's another queue. There's another queue, and that is global queue. And the global queue has different priority tasks in the queue. So we have user interactive tasks. So that task means that if you specify that user is on user interactive tasks, it means that user is actively interacting with this task, actually looking at the screen. So meaning whatever is going on there, whatever processes are going on there, so user interactive task has to be performed right immediately. It is high priority. User initiated tasks inside the queue that must run immediately as they react to user interactions, like reacting on a specific button click or task within the queue, and also continue as a high priority task. Utility use this queue to perform long running operations on the background. These are low low priority task and like downloading customer file and uh, under this queue. So in background, those tasks take minutes, from minutes to hours. So those tasks are like normally pretty long, and they kind of run on the background. And these are heavy operations that performs like on the background without affecting app performance. For example, like a backup. So you would when your user decides to do a backup, so it's a background task. And we also have a custom queue. Custom queue as a there's a serial queue. In serial queue dispatch, you perform one task at a time. To create a serial queue, dispatch queue will need to create dispatch queue with a serial tag. And there are also concurrent queue. In concurrent queue, tasks were performed in parallel. We can determine which task will be finished execution first. So like one of them can finish first. To create concurrent queue, dispatch queue, you have to create dispatch queue with concurrent tag. So and this is GCD. And GCD is a long topic, and your interviewer may ask you to elaborate, and provide examples. When would you use different tasks and different queues? So, but like overall, it's a good information to know. Um, and I think this is all that I wanted to cover today. Um, one of the sometimes companies may ask you a question about testing and kind of like architectural aspect of testing. Where do you see testing fit? Like how testing fit in your application? And normally you would like to answer it in such a way that we perform testing on the class levels. We run unit tests. Then we have automated tests like sanity tests, for example, or regression tests that we would like to automate. And then we have manual tests, because there's no way we can escape from manual tests. Even though we have really good automation, we still need to make sure that our app is up to a good standard. So, but overall, we have to have really good coverage on the unit test. We have to have reasonable coverage on automated tests for like regression tests and for sanity tests and stuff like that. So, and we definitely have to have like manual testers, and to make sure that our app looks and feels exactly right. And also, one of the aspect of manual testing is ad hoc testing. So it's also like machines can do ad hoc testing really well, because machines normally they do task or automated tests do tasks what they were programmed to do. So this is all what I had in my slides. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have any questions, any thoughts. And I would like to hear from you. What kind of questions do you usually get on the interview when you interviewing for iOS positions? I also would like to know what type of interview you are getting. Like, is it like iOS interview questions, or is it like more so like algorithm and data structures? And also, if you're still watching, or if you're just joining my live stream, the replay will be available on YouTube. And if you are on YouTube, please do the YouTube things, like and subscribe and share. And when you share, you never know who's going to watch this video. Maybe somebody is looking to change their career. path, and that video may actually be a good resource for them, or at least to start thinking into that and towards that direction. So, and kind of on the positive note, I would like to mention that I don't know about y'all. But I've been receiving a lot of phone calls from the recruiters here recently. My phone was literally blowing up, and I thought it would be a good thing to chat about iOS interview questions and answers, and kind of bringing a little bit new perspective to iOS community. So if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, please share it with me, because I am pretty much done with my live stream. Today, my live stream is a little bit shorter than usual. And with interview questions, I haven't covered like quite a lot of questions. Let me know if you need another session on iOS interview questions and answers. I also will do my research and see like what questions I haven't covered. But I think majority of the time, for majority of the questions, I cover it really well. And another thing is answer general iOS questions. And for different roles, for example, if you're interviewing for more senior roles, you will get more senior architectural questions. And if you're interviewing for junior positions, you may not be asked a lot of iOS questions, and instead you might be asked to perform some sort of algorithm and data structure. Or you might, on the other hand, you might be asked a lot of iOS questions. And if you're interviewing for a mid-level position, they definitely would like to know that you are up to speed with iOS domain. If they choose to go with iOS domain specific knowledge questions. So, but your interview and your interview style and your interview questions, they will depend on the level of the position that you're interviewing for. So if there's no more questions or thoughts, I really appreciate all of you for writing here with me. I hope it was useful. Let me know in the comments and in the chat if I miss anything, if you would like me to do more iOS questions and answers, job interview questions and answers, if it was helpful. Oh, hey, Calvin. Thanks, Eugene. Great live stream. Very useful tips and information in here. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for writing with me. Thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, y'all.